Yes.
Ready, 4, abs, secrets, go. I felt like I was like a Power Ranger or something right there.
Do it, give it to us, come on.
So one of the biggest mistakes we see with abdominal training is the confusion between hip flexion and lumbar flexion. Let me demonstrate. This is hip flexion. This is lumbar flexion. One of them works the hip flexors. The other one works the abs. Remember, the abdominals attach at the rib cage and at the pelvis, and when they contract, they bring those 2 points together. So if you're doing a full range of motion abdominal exercise, this is what you should aim for, not this. You may get some stabilization going on there with the hip flexors, but you're not really working the abs the way they should be worked. So I'm going to demonstrate both of those versions with a common exercise, the reverse crunch. So a reverse crunch here, if I'm just doing the hip flexion part, this is what it looks like. Now my abs are stabilizing, but really I'm working my hip flexors. I'm not doing much for my abs. And in fact, if people work out a lot like this, they'll complain of lower back pain when they do their abs. That's a common sign that you're not hitting the abs properly.
Well, if you look at it, you could just see all the movement is just happening right here at your hips. So.
Right. Now, if I want to do the reverse crunch and really work my abs, I don't stop here. I rotate back. Now this is full contraction of the abdominals.
Well, and what we can't see because of your shirt and everything is, so his spine looks like this. It goes like this, and then in the lumbar, it has this curve this way. And then what he's doing is he's flexing that spine the opposite direction, and that's what's getting the contraction.
It's really that last inch or inch and a half that really makes the difference.
And this is true for leg raises, sit-ups, crunches, any abdominal movement that's not a stabilization movement, one where you're working a full range of motion. The goal should be to get this, to close the distance here, to get this lumbar flexion. If I'm not doing that and I'm just doing this, I'm creating problems. I can create hip flexor dominance, low back pain. Look, when you do your abs, your back should not hurt. If it's hurting when you're doing your abs, when you're doing leg raises, you're probably just working your hip flexors.
Well, something that I think is important too, so I'm gonna add to that because one of the things that people have a hard time is getting into the right position before they can do that. So if you are hip flexor and quad dominant, which most people are, and then you see Sal do a movement like that and you just try and mirror it, a lot of times you'll have a hard time still connecting the abdominals. So a tip that I give to people when they get in a crunch position, whether you're doing a reverse crunch or you're doing a regular crunch or you're doing some sort of a variation, is right before I do this movement. So you notice I have this arch, and that's because,
go ahead.
Yeah, so you have this arch right here. And that's because my pelvis is tilted in an anterior tilt. So I have this tilt, and that tilt is going to cause my hip flexors to want to take over this movement more. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of that tilt. And the way I do that is by pressing.
There you go. Now you can see he just took that space away.
So that space is gone.
And by the way, in order to do that, you got to tense the core.
Yeah, my abs are already working already just by flattening the back. So now I've taken my spine into a neutral position, and now I want to be able to contract. So now that I'm pressing my low back flat, now I'm going to think about bringing my belly button up towards my sternum, and that's what I'm thinking about. And the whole time, I'm keeping that low back pressed as I rock up and I'm coming in. And that applies for even if we were going to do a crunch forward, the first thing I want to do is get rid of that arch by actually rotating my pelvis.
Right, if your mentality is to pull your chest to your belly button, you're on the right track.
Yeah.